That's a great deer.
He's freaking awesome.
Joey finally demolished a deer last night. The benchmark I'd set for the year. I know you're deer. How the frick did I just miss?
Oh, this freaking saddle just run that shotgun.
That's a shooter. That's one of the 10s too.
To say it was a season from hell would be an understatement. Over 50, 60 sits, 25, 30 days, terrible weather. Sitting there in days where I normally wouldn't be sitting with an inch or two of snow stacking on top of me. But being committed to something is tough, because if you have the mentality to not give up, you're screwed. So you're gonna sit there and you're gonna go through those stages. You're gonna go through the stuff that sucks. You're gonna go through the good parts, the bad parts, and everything in between, because you're gonna do what it takes to hit that goal, to succeed. And to say that I didn't have to go through that stuff this year would just be a flat out lie. I gave myself, to start the season, two of the biggest goals that I've ever set within hunting, which was not intentional, but both those goals being, one, to teach a brand new bow hunter, one, how to shoot a bow, and number two, which started before the season, but number two, to help him kill his first deer with a bow. So if anybody's ever taken a new bow hunter, it just takes time.
From the sounds of things, bucks are in timber, so we're gonna wait this one out and see if we can get a little lucky.
And when that takes time, then it's taking time from whatever other goal you set for yourself. And the other goal being, for me, was a 170-inch deer. And not just to kill a 170-inch deer, but mainly the only deer I had in my area that was that magnitude, that abnormally large compared to the other deer, the hardest one on the farm to be able to kill was my goal. You combine those two things together and you're pretty much setting yourself up for, if you don't do it right, you're setting yourself up for failure. With my buddy Joey, we went through the first 16, 18 days of a season where, to start it, we had one of my biggest deer show up, but didn't come close enough. And then after that, he missed his first deer. And so there's your first kind of like, oh, no big deal. It's second day, so we had plenty of time.
Can't see her. You got a shot.
And after that, it just went everything downhill. We're not seeing deer. We're getting skunked left and right. He's not picky as far as a buck goes, and we can't see anything more than a spike.
We have had another day of putting our patience to the test. We know they're around here somewhere, but we're just not seeing them.
So we had to start expanding our horizons a little bit, and at the time I was carrying my bow with me because we were hunting a spot where I knew my target was at as well. And we just said, no, we're gonna kind of focus and hone in. We're gonna do one thing at a time, get this done, and then we'll focus on me. So we started hunting with just Joey carrying his bow, just me carrying camera and everything. And to start the season, that would be a season of what I thought would be a massive success, would be on November 2nd. So like I said, me and Joey have been going through a lot. And for the past 3 days prior to November 2nd, we'd found a new spot that we had never hunted before on this piece of land. And for whatever reason, that's where they were at. That's where the deer were. And I think they're there during the year, but I guess maybe I overlooked it. I don't know. So we got a couple stands set in there, and I told him, and not necessarily told him, I argued with him. I was not happy. I just said, look, Joey, we're going right into the heart of where my target buck is. This is where he lives, this is where he beds. There's a chance that he comes by. I don't know if he will or not. We haven't seen him on the hoof here. And he said, no, I won't shoot him. It doesn't matter if he comes into 15 yards, I'm not going to do it. And I said, look, dude, I respect that and I appreciate that, but you get one opportunity at a caliber of a deer like that. And if you get that opportunity, you got to take it. So sure enough, the next morning, he's got 2 bucks fighting like 100 yards away. So I start rattling at him to try to get him to come in. And they just completely act like there's something off. Like they both picked their heads up like they wanted to come in, and then immediately they like looked back behind him and then opposite way.
There's a third deer, Joey.
And right when I said that, I hear Joey say, big buck, big buck. And I look over, and I didn't even have to look through my binoculars to know. He's like 150 yards away coming out of a creek bottom. It's Elway. It's the number 1.
He's coming. I know. And you're gonna be mad at me.
This deer is fired up. He does not have a doe. He heard the antlers. He's on a line coming in. He's raking trees on the way in. He's making scrapes. He is fired up, to say the least. And I'm sitting here like jaw dropped to the floor. This is like the second or third sit I haven't brought my bow because we're trying to focus. And for comfort's sake, the only thing I get to hear from Joey is, I stand by what I said.
I'm telling you that I'm standing strong with my opinion on Elway, okay?
And I know what he means when he says that. He's saying that he's not going to shoot the freaking deer. And I want to be, and I was mad. I was like, dude, I don't think you understand the caliber of this deer. And where I had made the mistake was he did understand. Granted, he had never killed a deer or a buck at all with his bow. He did understand the caliber of that deer, and that's why he did what he did, because I had set a milestone for myself. I had set a goal, and to prove the respect of a friend, or for me, I guess, from a friend he has, was immaculate. You don't find very many people that have never shot a deer before or a buck in their life, and they pass a Boone and Crockett one at 15 yards. And 15 yards, he comes in perfect, quartered away, and it was the highest, probably the highest of the season, because I had done something I didn't know I could. I didn't know if I could put myself in a position to be able to kill that deer, to get him to 15 yards, to get a deer of that caliber, that age, and a deer I've known for multiple years to come in, and I did. And it was tough, because I'm sitting there looking at this deer knowing that you're not, like I said, you're not going to get another chance. And so when Joey turns around, he goes, are you crying? And I said, well, yeah, I'm crying. And it wasn't bad tears at all. It was happy. Like my jaw was dropped. I didn't know how much I cared about this deer until I see him at 15 yards. And I'm like, I didn't know how to handle it, because my heart was going nuts. And I knew the deer wasn't going to get shot or anything, just standing there. I had no idea we were there. So it was the high point right there. And instant karma, I guess you could say. Turn around that night, Joey kills a buck. First ever buck of his life with his bow.
Okay, you're good. You gotta wait for me. Okay. I gotta get set up. He's gonna chase her, so 20 yards. Mistaken. It felt really good. I think you just crushed. I think. Let's go. Let's go. If I saw that right, you put it right by the shoulder. You got so mad at me. I was like, did you know you were fighting out? Dude, I think I just freaking crushed it. And I'm not even cussing. I'm not cussing. You didn't even have a chance to get nervous. I'm not cussing. I'm not cussing. Oh my gosh. Dude. Oh my gosh. Oh, let's go.
he got rewarded real quick right there. And to move on with the season, we're like, okay, now it's time to hone in on Elway. It's time to go. So we go back the next couple days. I have a new camera guy, Nick, who's with me. Joey had some other stuff he had to do. And we had 2 or 3 of the best sits I probably had all year. We're seeing multiple big deer, 10 to 15 different bucks in a sit, and more than that in deer total. But just deer were moving, they were everywhere, but no sign of Elway. And for whatever reason, I told Nick, I was like, hey, I don't know where he's at, but I know he's here, and I bet we have a pretty good chance this evening. The first stage of hell starts right there, because we get in, and it's like, I don't know, 3:30. We are 30, 40 yards from our stand, and the sun hits it just right. I see a back standing on the other side of the hill. And so I looked at my binoculars, and I lost it. I was like, no freaking way. And it was him. It was Elway.
The good thing is he truly does not know that we are here.
What?
The good thing is he truly doesn't know we are here.
What about him not knowing we're here?
That's the good thing.
I know that's a good thing, but the bad thing is we're stuck out here right now, and there's gonna be other deer coming by. And I think he's callable right now.
Every option in my head was going through. You scoot over next to a tree, rattle him in, do something. He doesn't know we're there. Sit tight, let him go. Try to sneak up to the stand, get in. And so we elected to wait. I told Nick, we're just gonna hold off. Let's just see what he does. He's kind of moving a little bit. And I let him get just enough out of sight. We snuck up to the stand. I thought we got in there pretty quietly, and we both did extremely well. We got into the stand, didn't see any deer go anywhere or run or anything. And I told Nick, just get everything set up as quick as possible. We're gonna rattle at this deer right away. We get in the stand, rattle, here he comes. And I'm sitting there like, this is like clockwork. No way this is gonna freaking work. And the deer comes in like 70, 75 yards, hangs up, is just looking in the bottom, and I'm like, there's nothing else I can do to get him to come in. He can see in the bottom, so he heard the antlers, and maybe my mistake was I rattled too soon. He wasn't far enough away, but he could see into the bottom. He could see there wasn't any other deer there, or any deer that he cared to go mess with. So I imagine that's probably why he hung up at 75. Well, right when he turns away, I tried to snort wheeze at him just to get his attention. He wheels right back like he's coming again, and stops this time at like 70 again. And so eventually he moves on, and that's number one. That was the first failure. That was where I was like, I don't know, I was kicking myself a lot. That was like November 5th or 6th, I think. And I had Joey back in the stand with me. We're going and going and going. It's been 2-3 days now. We haven't seen a trail camera picture. We haven't seen Elway. Really haven't been seeing any bucks of any caliber at this point. And we're sitting in the same stand, or I guess the same area that we were sitting the first place we saw Elway come in. And like 20 minutes left of dark, until dark, last legal shooting light, and just all hell breaks loose. Absolutely the biggest fight I've ever heard in my life. I've seen we have some deer on the wall that I've seen fight that have like 20 inches of mass, and it is nuts. It sounds like 2 wooden baseball bats hitting together. And I'm telling you right now, it was like nothing I've ever heard. And typically, any experience that I've had with these bucks, when they get to fighting that hard, they're gonna do it for a while. And so you take the risk of, when they break, will they come in or will they go somewhere else? And I couldn't get myself to jump out and go. I played defense, and that was mistake number 1 or number 2 or 3. But I knew it was Elway solely for the fact of how loud and how dense the antlers were. We stayed. They fought for another 10 minutes, and nothing showed up. We didn't have any other deer come by. Nothing. We go into another stand the next morning, and on our walk out, I pulled a camera and I switched my cell cam. I'm like, heck yeah, we found Elway again. At least I'm like 90% sure we found Elway again. And ding, 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 ding. The phone starts going nuts with all these cell cam notifications. And that was heartbreak. That morning he'd come by and had his biggest tine was broken off. And this deer, I had set the 170 mark partially because of him, but partially because I wanted to see if I could beat my other biggest deer. But I was out. I was out for the count. That was like November 8th, and I had put my all summer into finding this deer. I had put in the past month into helping Joey, knowing that I was going to have this deer to come to. I had been hunting. I was already over 20 days of hunts at that point. I didn't know how to handle it, I guess you could say, which sounds maybe stupid to some people that don't understand or haven't put themselves in the position I did. But that's where I made the mistake of putting the amount of pressure I did on one deer on one season. Nick came with me again. We go in the morning. I said, look, dude, I don't even know. I know there's deer in here, but I don't know what deer that I would be super excited about shooting. So as long as I see a deer that gets me going or gets me somewhat excited, I'm good. And sure enough, that like before we even got set, I look over and it's pretty dark, so I can't see well, but I said, Nick, big buck. And I don't know how big he was. I just knew that I saw antlers and I was pumped. So we get set, I rattled this deer in, and I predicted him coming into a certain spot at 20. And right when I noticed he's not, I'm like, okay, he's gonna be like 32, 33. So I better fix this. Dialed my pin quick and get to full draw, and I was already late as far as where I was gonna be able to shoot him from, but I could still had a hole. So I stop him, take my time.
Are you kidding me? How the frick did I just miss?
I was angry, I was disappointed in myself, confused. There's just a lot of questions going on in my head. Like, the giving up was never an option, but the fact of, do I deserve this was. And what I mean by that is, do I deserve to be able to sit here and hunt when I had my expectations set for such a large deer, and now I feel like I'm settling? And does that, whatever other deer that comes in, does he deserve that? Does he deserve to have one of my arrows go through him because I want to hunt? Thank God for family and friends, because they're sitting there like, look, dude, we all know the amount of love you have for hunting. And I was like, I know I have a lot of love for hunting. That's who I am as a person, to the core, through and through. I was scared, terrified that I was going to lose that because just all the emotions that were going into it, and I put so much pressure on this. We're now like, November 10th, 11th, somewhere in there. And it's crap weather. I don't know where it came from. Terrible. Like, we're getting like sub 10 degree weather and 20, 30 mile an hour winds. We got snow coming, all sorts of crap. But I was like, I'm not just going to sit on the couch. Like, if it's going to be the rut, they're going to be moving, hopefully. And so I had Warren in the stand with me now. I hadn't hunted with him in a while, but I'm swapping through camera guys left and right. And we go hunt a stand that we hadn't been in previously, or I haven't hunted all year. And sure enough, like the second sit, this buck comes in. I didn't trust myself. He ends up running another buck off. Then when he comes back to his doe, he runs right into the opening to my right. And so now I'm like screwed because I can't get my bow over there, nothing. I am going as slow as I can, as best I can, but the deer's looking, like he caught us. I have no idea how. I've never had a buck that is rutting that hard. The doe has no idea we're there, but the buck does. And so I'm royally stressed. I was upset with myself. Another mistake. What else? I got Eli now, another one of our camera guys. So now I'm on like my fourth camera guy. And just said, screw it. I'm just going to go all in. So wherever I have the best idea of where some of these deer are, I don't care what I have to do. I'll put up cameras. I'm putting up stands. I probably hung 20 or 30 stands this year. I move a stand with Eli, and we go sit there. And now it's been since the encounter with Ollie was like, it's been like a week now too, and I haven't seen another buck that was even like any mature deer whatsoever. So I'm, again, now to the point where like, why can I not find the deer? I don't know where they're at. I don't know why they can't get them to come in. I've never had this issue on this farm before. So my dad gave me the opportunity. He's like, hey, anywhere you want to go, we can go. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but I don't want to just have like a ton of places, options. Like I have spent my past 4 years on this farm learning these deer, everything. So I want, if I'm going to do that, which I probably need to, I want to at least pick like a certain area and try to, like somewhere maybe you guys don't know that well. So we picked a farm, and me and Dad kind of went at it. So this is my fifth camera guy.
Thanksgiving. Nowhere else would a holder be than in a tree stand on Thanksgiving. We're sitting at like 25, 26 days for you, boy. It's been a long season.
and we hunt one day, figure him out a little bit, hunt the next day in a saddle.
That's a shooter. He's coming this way.
I'm left-handed, I'm screwed up. So like if the tree's here, I'm planning on the shots being over here, and of course a shooter buck comes in on this side. And so it's not a big deal. I get flipped around. Well, the first time I get flipped around, I get to full draw. I try to stop him. He doesn't even hesitate, keeps going. So I'm like, oh crap.
You gotta be kidding me. I don't have an opening.
Let down because there's so many leaves and everything still, which we have no idea how for it being November like 24th. Starts to get into another hole. I try to stop him again, and this time he doesn't stop, and I yell at him pretty much, and he stops behind a freaking tree.
Dude, what the heck?
So I'm like, oh my gosh, what else could go wrong? So the third time I get to full draw on this deer, finally he stops on his own, and I literally right when I get my pin set on his body, like I still had to have settled it, but I just got my pin there, and I'm like turned around backwards, trying to lean out from the tree, and all of a sudden I go from like right here and boom, like six inches to a foot, like my whole body slides.
I don't have an opening, Dad. Oh, this freaking saddle just ruined that shot, Dad.
And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? My whole saddle just slipped off the rope. It moves me 12 inches. There's nothing I can do. Deer's moving now, gone, chasing another doe. So that was anger I have not felt before. And I felt bad for my dad because that was like the first time we've really hunted together where he's filmed me in like 7-8 years. So it's been a long time. And I was just livid. What else could go wrong? I don't understand why that has to go wrong, why I keep getting like these somewhat close opportunities and then something screws me over. And so I've gone through an absolute roller coaster and a half of a season. Well, we learned the deer a little bit that night. Dad gets me back on the horse. I said, I got to take a morning and just chill. And so me and him went and did some farm work. I got my head cleared again. And we go that evening. I said, all right, let's do this. Let's set a stand. We're going to sit in this stand. I have a pretty good feeling about it. He didn't believe me. And we see one of the bucks we knew, we called Ace. He's like a 170 some inch deer. He's freaking huge. And I had already thrown that 170 inch goal out the window a long time ago. And another deer shows up, another 11, so we call this one baby or little Ace because it's a mini version. And I have a hard time getting myself, like I have a 170 inch mature deer out in the field. Like what, you just gonna watch him or at least try to get him to come in, you know? And I was like, okay, if I rattle, maybe little Ace won't want to come through and come to us. Well, that didn't work.
He's a beast.
This freaking beast is walking in. He's like a 3-year-old. And I'm like, out of all the deer on this farm, every picture we have, why? Why him? And like, he's a deer I would have loved to hammer. And Dad's going, green light, you shoot him. For the year you've had, we can afford a buck, who cares? And I was like, Dad, that's, like, mind you, the deer's coming in right now, like while we're talking about this. I'm like, I can't do it, doesn't feel right. He goes, what do you mean? I was like, I'm not gonna sit here, and we just had a conversation about this literally like 2 hours ago. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you guys we can't be shooting these 3-year-olds, we can't be shooting these younger bucks that are going to have good potential or do have good potential and expect to have big deer. Just not how it works. Deer came in at 15 yards. It's the only deer all year besides Elway, when I didn't have my bow, that has come in correct. Come in the right spot, come in to 15 yards, 20 yards, and chip shot all day. And I didn't even let myself grab my bow because it didn't feel right. So we know what to do the next day. We grab a blind. For whatever reason, we had like 30 deer come out in the same exact trail or in the middle of a wide open cornfield, but there's a round bale over by it. So we are About 150 yards from where we were last night. But in a blind that we just popped up. And if anybody knows me, I hate blinds for one. If I was in the same shoes he was in the night before, I was like, this seems great, but no way these deer are gonna, we just popped a blind up. No, and yeah, it's next to the round bill, but no way they're gonna come in and not pay attention to it. It was now like 4:40. Hadn't seen a deer all night. And I said, well, Dad, I think I'm not even upset. Like, if this is how it's supposed to be played out, I've got a new outlook, kind of a refreshed outlook on the season. So if this is how it's supposed to go down, this is how it's supposed to go down. We got skunked, maybe we busted them, I don't know. And I look like 500 yards away, and I see a back of a deer. And so I look, I said, okay, well, we got a deer in the same cornfield. She's gonna have to pretty much run to get up here if it's gonna be before dark. And he goes, yeah, they better really hurry up. Well, about that time, then another one pops up, and another one pops up. And so it is like 4:45. They keep popping up. I'm like, holy cow, Dad, there's like 6 or 7 deer down there. And granted, they're a long ways away. And then I look over in front of us, like 100 yards away, and I see like what looks like a corn stalk moving. And I was like, what in the world? And I look through my binoculars, like, oh, I can just see the tail of a deer walking along the backside of the hill. And I said, there's a doe. And Dad goes, no, big buck, big buck. It was just a doe. Why would you say it's A's? Him, and I look, and he's like 100 yards, and this freaking buck is doing the exact same thing on November 26th as he did on the night before on the same trail with the same doe. And so I'm like, no freaking way that this is actually going to happen. And sure enough, now there's like 15 deer out further past them, but he's the first one to come out in the field like he did the first night. I'm gonna have to tell Warren he's right. My heart's freaking. Comes out, doe comes in to, I think she only got to like 50. He comes in to 43. 44. 43. He's totally relaxed. I know. Take your time. Yeah, but he's gonna come a little. The farthest I ever shoot on an animal is 40 yards. Because I know I can make that shot, and I know that they don't have enough time to get out of the way. So he comes into 43, calm as can be. My dad goes, okay, I know you can make this shot. You go ahead. That's the biggest deer of my life, like by far. But I'm not, unless he comes to 40, I'm not doing it. And so he gets away. He walks by, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even mad about it, because I can hang my hat on that. If I didn't feel like it was right, it wasn't right. I'm not doing it. I turn around and I see there's like 15 or 20 deer out in the field now. And right then another buck pops up. I said, Dad, big buck, shooter buck. Right here. That's a shooter. That's one of the 10s too. He starts walking in perfect. He's chasing a doe, and he's coming the same way as Ace was. And I'm like, no freaking way. Because then I ranged him at 43 again. I'm like, no freaking way this is going to happen again. He's walking to the doe. Turn around to Dad. I said, if he comes in, I'm going to do it. And right then, he starts chasing the doe. Dad goes, oh, he's going to do it. It's going to work perfect. I'm like, David. This is going to work. David, why do you say that crap? And I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, there's no way it can't. But anyways, you just don't want to jinx it. And he comes into 33. When I stop him, he's the only corn stalk in the freaking field. I'm like, makes sense, you know, at this point. I've just accepted. If something's gonna go wrong, let it go wrong, whatever. Literally, right where my pin was settled is where the corn stalk ended up. The shot was exactly where I wanted it, but I think I got 3 inches of penetration, if that. So there's nothing we can do. I said, whether that deer is dead or not, that's my tag. So like, this is it. I did everything I could. I've stuck through this. I just shot a deer perfect. This is it. It was right in the right spot. I know.
What could possibly go worse?
Finally, we sat there and I said, I can't wait. So I walk out, grab the arrow, and I come back. I said, okay, I think we just got really lucky. And he goes, you didn't get lucky, you hit the freaking deer where you aimed. And ended up having like 14 inches of penetration. He just snapped it off and it made it look like it had not gotten any penetration. Well, we're gonna go track this deer. Dad's sure, I'm not. It was a good shot, a lot of penetration. But after this year, I am very hard at having positivity here. So we're gonna try it. Okay? Yeah, there's blood. There's more. Yep. I do think there's more blood than this, but we're just not seeing it in the dirt and stuff.
Look right there, buddy. Oh, he never made it to the timber. Huh? How about them apples?
That is the biggest freaking relief
Huh?
I have had all year. Love you, kid.
To pass a deer, the deer of a lifetime from a friend to start at 15 yards, then I go through everything I've gone through this season, and then pass a 170 some inch deer that would be the biggest deer of my life too, just because it wasn't the right shot, and not know where your season's gonna go, and then still be stoked about a deer that is not 170. This deer has represented resilience.
That's a great.
He's freaking awesome.
Nice, freaking man.
Oh yeah. Oh, we freaking did it.
Perfect shot, dude.
Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough.
Who?
You.
What for? I didn't do nothing.
If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be hunting still. You know, I would have been waiting after everything that happened.
Not gonna be my biggest, and I really couldn't care less, because this is the hardest I've ever had to work for any deer in my entire life. And I had over 60 sits or something like that, 28 days alone with Joey. I was over 40 days in a tree stand this year. You know, it was definitely a year I will never forget. So 2022 season was hell and heaven all at the same time. So